Lesson 4, Unit 3, the baseline study. A baseline study is done at the start of a project to define the current status of the target community before the project is implemented. A good definition of a baseline study comes from the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. A baseline study is a descriptive cross-sectional survey that mostly provides quantitative information on the current status of a particular situation in a given population. It aims at quantifying the distribution of certain variables in a study population at one point in time. In other words, the objectives of a baseline studies are to define the starting point of the project. The study will collect data that will define the values of the project indicators before the project begins. With this information, it is possible to identify areas of priority for the project. For example, a baseline study will help categorize the communities based on who needs the most support. The data is also used to monitor the progress of the project in reaching its targets, and it's an essential component to attribute the changes in the community to the project intervention. Finally, the baseline study is a requirement for good project evaluation as it helps collect the same type of data in order to measure the change. What are the differences between baseline study and a needs assessment study? Are they the same? A needs assessment study collects information during the design phase of the project and is used to identify areas of intervention. A baseline study collects information before the start of the project implementation phase and is used to track the progress of the project. The baseline data is gathered before a project begins and is used to provide a comparison for assessing the net effect of the project. Baseline data helps establish benchmark for the different indicators. This picture of the original conditions of the project facilitates the monitoring of the project progress in achieving its goals. It will be used again to compare with the picture taken at the end of the project. For each indicator, the baseline study will measure a value. These values will vary depending on the type of project, and they are used to determine the actual work the project needs to do in order to reach its goal. For example, for indicator 1, the baseline identified that the community already had a 40% value. Then, the target for that indicator is to achieve the remaining 60%. The baseline study will provide the value where the indicator is at the beginning of the project. With this information, the project manager will know how much more work the project needs to do. What is valuable about this information is that it helps identify those indicators that are going to need more work in order to achieve their target. And that is important in terms of how the project can organize its resources. The principal focus of the baseline is to collect and analyze pre-intervention data related to the indicators at the goal and outcome levels. It is important to have the baseline values before the project begins so that the project can measure its performance over time. During each data collection cycle, the project will be able to measure the progress it makes, and the project manager can use this information to monitor the effectiveness of the project in reaching its goal. As the data is collected and analyzed, the monitoring system will show how the indicator starts to change until the end of the project. Any deviations from the planned progress will require a deeper analysis and a solution to help put the project back in track. In this chart, the baseline value was at 25%. As the project made progress, it used this value to compare the changes of the indicator. A control group is another important component of the baseline study. A control group is a group of people not exposed to the project activities but similar to the project's target group. The project can use the data from a control group to use it as a comparison to the target group. Data from the control group helps attribute the observable changes to the project interventions. On the chart, the red line represents the changes in an outcome indicator from the target group. The blue line, the changes in the control group. At the end of the project, the difference is the change in the conditions in the target group of beneficiaries that can be attributed to the project and not to external factors. This difference proves the value of the project to the donor and key stakeholders. It tells what would have happened if the project had not been implemented. Here's another example of the use of control groups to compare the changes with project beneficiaries. The project collects data on a monthly basis and can plot a chart that shows the difference between the two groups. Here are some factors to consider when conducting a baseline study. Spend enough time to do the research and plan the baseline. Make sure that the goals and indicators are the correct ones and can be used for the evaluation phase. Avoid collecting excessive and non-specific information. Collecting data is expensive. Make sure to involve key stakeholders and get their feedback and advice. Collect baseline data at a specific single point of time and look for errors in sampling, making sure the project is not collecting information from people that might not be representative of the larger group. What happens when the project doesn't have a baseline and the evaluator is asking for one? For many reasons, some projects don't have a baseline that can be used during the evaluation phase. In this case, the project may decide to reconstruct the baseline data using the following strategies. Use of secondary data, such as data collected by other organizations or government institutions. Use of the administrative data from the intervention, such as feasibility studies and other administrative records the project collected before the planning phase. Recall techniques of individuals are asking individuals to provide information about their conditions before the project. Also, group interviews are a similar technique used to get information from a group of beneficiaries about the conditions that existed before the project. There is another type of baseline that the project will use. This is related to the project management areas of scope, schedule, and budget. Each one of these components is a constraint. For each one of these constraints, the project will set a baseline. The scope of work baseline defines the total amount of work the project will do. The schedule baseline defines the duration of the project and the original estimates. And the budget baseline defines the total cost of the project and the original estimates. As the project makes progress, the project manager will monitor the changes in scope, schedule, and budget against the baseline. For example, the project manager notices that there will be a delay in the delivery of some critical tasks, tasks 3 and 4, that will impact the end date of the project. He reviews the original estimates, the baseline, and comes up with a new schedule that avoids the delay in the end of the project. The project management baseline is a target baseline used as a planning metric against which the progress of the actual project performance can be measured.